I've always thought of the film, right from first reading the book, that it's an action movie, which is a curious thing to say because it's an action movie where the hero can't move, really. And that in itself is I mean, I love action movies, and the films I've made tend to be full of that kind of visceral action. Whereas this, of course, he's stopped for 127 hours and trapped by this boulder. But I always thought that it had there's an assertion in it. There's a life force in it which goes even beyond the extraordinary courage he showed as an individual. And it's something that, and this is the ultimate idea of the film, is that binds us all together, is that the life force that kept him going is actually not individualism as such. It's not that extraordinary act he did. It's actually this thing that binds us all together. Well, I guess a lot of people, heard the story when it broke in the world news. It's one of those stories that just went everywhere in the world, and everybody you speak to now, developing the film and preparing to shoot it, knows about it, you know, or thinks they know about it, I guess. And so I followed it there. I was astonished when I heard about it as a story, and so I read the book when it came out, this book, and this is the original copy. This is Aaron's book, and this is my copy, which I bought and read. It's the British edition, but it's pretty similar to the American edition. And I remember reading it, and it's the same thing, really. You just know, well, in this case, I wanted to make a film about it. People, when they talk about the story, they go, whoa, as though they could never do it. I think what's extraordinary about the story and the life force that pulls him back to society, to community, means that we'd all do it. And that's the idea of the film, is that if you live through this experience going into the canyon with him, and you don't leave that canyon, you know, until he leaves that canyon, you will go through the experience, you will join him in doing it. Another thing that's extraordinary about it is that he discovered this when he was a young man. You know, it's something that people feel as they get older, probably. You know, the value of life and the things that are important in life. But actually at 27, he had this moment where he realized the value of life itself, really, and wanted to keep it going. He's never alone in the canyon. That's the other extraordinary thing about the book, I think, is that he's not really alone in the canyon. Obviously, he's alone in the canyon, but spiritually, emotionally, he's never alone in the canyon, you know? And it's that force that actually brings him back eventually. This man, he was an extraordinary athlete, although he's very modest about his own achievements. Now, he, you know, compared to most of us, he's super fit. I mean, super fit. He climbs mountains on his own. So this particular incident was a walk in the park for him. It was nothing. It was just a kind of bit of, you know, it was just a way to spend an afternoon, you know, or to spend a day in this canyon and just whip through it. You know, in fact, he was sort of like, you know, trying to beat the time that is in the guidebook about, you know, how long it takes you to get through this canyon and out. So it's nothing really in a way. And yet it was the moment in which nature stepped in and said, stop, wait, okay? And he couldn't believe it. He says in the film, this is ridiculous, because he's avoided danger and dealt with terrible things in his climbing career. So this, for an experienced climber like him, is nothing. And yet it's the moment in which nature intervenes and says, stop. You know, you kind of read the story and you imagine this huge boulder. It's quite a small boulder. But its mass, its intensity, and its position that he moves it into traps him completely and makes him... And it took, in fact, if you read the book, I think it took a dozen men or more to move it. When they went back to, after he'd got out, they went back to the site. It took over a dozen men to actually move the stone, really. Whereas he looks at it and he just thinks, I can move it. So that it feels like there are forces at work there that actually say, this is meant for you, you know. This is for you to deal with now, if you can. Filmmakers, all of us, we spend like 90% of our lives, professional lives, shooting what are called eye lines, which is that now I'm looking to you, I'm looking left to right to you, and you're looking right to left back to me, or whatever like that, and then the eye line changes, and you know, and that's what you do. You shoot 2 or 3 actors, and that's why everybody complains about dining room scenes are a nightmare when you've got lots of characters, because it's getting all those eye lines right, and that is movies. That is, it doesn't even matter whether it's a huge action movie or what sort of movie it is. It's all based on eye lines, really. That's how you emotionally connect the characters and how you remain believably engaged in it. And of course, there's no one. He's no one to make eye lines to at all. So you think, well, what other ingredients can we bring to the film? So what we thought we would have 2 cinematographers. We don't have any actors to work with him, so we'll work with 2 cinematographers. So we'll build up, and we won't necessarily want them to shoot something that is exactly the same, that looks exactly the same, that they will bring a personality to the events that happen, that are those ingredients, that are a substitute for the other characters apparently appearing. There's an assertion in it, there's a life force in it, which goes even beyond the extraordinary courage he showed as an individual. And it's something that, and this is the ultimate idea of the film, is that binds us all together, is that the life force that kept him going is actually not individualism as such. It's not that extraordinary act he did. It's actually this thing that binds us all together.